Hi guys, just a quick reminder that if you didn't read the caption for this particular episode, it may be a little bit of a trigger warning for those of you who may have been in an abusive relationship. I had decided that I was going to go ahead and release this podcast. There was a moment where I said I was not going to, but I also looked at it and said the name of this podcast is Hello Me, It's Me, Vulnerable SF. And if I'm going to be true to that, I have to be true to myself 100%. You guys know I have not been 100% honest with you or myself. And so the whole purpose of this podcast is to do that. And so that means I'm going to have to be real, be open, and be honest with myself in ways that I probably have never done before. That being said, this is just a quick reminder that it may be a little bit too emotional for some. I said all that to say, you've been warned. Go in at your own expense, and podcast already in progress.
Welcome to Hello Me, It's Me, Vulnerable AF, a podcast hosted by Nikki D. Lovely. That's really just her diary disguised as a podcast, but who cares? You're here for it. Join in as she addresses her self-reflections on life, love, and dating, and gives us all the tea by being more vulnerable than she ever has, with herself and the world. So let's get started in today's episode with Nikki D. Lovely, already in progress.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Hello Me, It's Me, a Nikki D. Lovely podcast. A podcast where I basically am addressing myself regarding some very personal issues. I like to call this a audio journal that I'm sharing to myself, but also with the world. So with that note, I'd like to thank you for being here and taking part of my journey of self-discovery. I'm a very big advocate for mental health, and this has been pretty therapeutic. And this is going to be the first month that I kind of get away from that thing I was going through last month with the whole quote-unquote breakup or whatever. It was really just detachment. I was trying to detach myself from the person that had been talking to for the past 3 months. I think what happened was I just wound up getting a little bit more attached than I should have. But anyway, that's all over, done with. We're never speaking on that again unless it relates to something else that's coming up in my life. What I do want to talk about today is, interestingly enough, therapy. Being a mental wellness advocate and sharing my thoughts and my most vulnerable moments this past month. Today, of course, I hate to say this, will probably be no different. I thought I was going to get away from this, but I'm realizing that one of the things I have never been, even with my best friends and my parents even, and even with myself, if I'm being honest, is allowing myself to break down all of my walls and be as vulnerable as I can. So I am literally doing this for the first time via podcast, via the world. For someone who's been so private, for someone for the past 20 years who has held most of her things to herself close to her chest, when I tell you that this has been hard for me, but also easy at the same time, I guess, because I'm actually allowing myself to let go. I really don't know how to explain this. If you ask any of my friends, they will tell you that I'm the strong one. And I think you all know we all have that strong friend that we look at and we're like, wow, nothing gets that person down. I've always been that person. Even when I was in middle school, I had a teacher. Actually, they had a box where we could give compliments to everyone in the class. And once a week, she thought it'd be a great idea if all the kids would put in a compliment and we read it aloud to the class. And I remember her pulling out a quote-unquote compliment. Because you know how middle school kids are during those days. We don't compliment each other. Whatever it was, I remember her precursing it by saying, and I'm going to share this. I'm very disappointed in what you guys wrote in these comment sections. This was supposed to be a positive thing. But I'm going to share it anyway because I know she doesn't care. And she's directing this towards me. And she's like, whatever the comment was, it was a negative comment about me. And I remember having to like shrug it off because, hey, she said it. I don't care, right? So I had to put on a brave face and be like, yeah, I don't care. And I think I took on that persona for most of my life. Y'all, this is going to be hard. I think I took on that persona for most of my life of when things went wrong, you put on this brave face. I know I'm not the only person that does this. You just say to yourself, well, that didn't work out. And you lie to yourself. And you lie to the world. And you put on this big old smile. And you say, no, that didn't work out. Well, I don't care. On to the next. And I guess there's some resiliency in that, or it seems as though there's some resiliency in that because, again, we don't want to be beaten down by life. So we tend to say or tell ourselves, well, we're just moving on because can't sit in this too long. But I think the problem comes in the lie in saying that we don't care. Or at least for me, I think is what I'm realizing now all these years later is if I'm being honest with myself, I probably really did care. It was just putting on this brave face that I don't care, And I started going into this today because I just got off the phone with my mom not too long ago. And we were talking about therapy. And she mentioned, maybe I should go into therapy myself. Maybe I should save some money and go into therapy because my mom's been through a lot of traumatic experiences in her life. And I think a lot of times what happens is we don't realize that the experiences that we've had have been traumatic. And the reason why we don't is because we're telling ourselves that they're not. Because if we actually sat in it, we might not be able to function. If we go back and think about some of those traumatic experiences that happened to us, we might not be able to function during the day because it takes us back mentally to that space. So I was telling her about how the fact I've been sharing, podcasts. I've had a lot of people actually come up to me and tell me about their own personal traumas that they didn't realize were traumas. And I told her that, maybe some instance when she was growing up, when she saw her parents fighting, because she said they would get pretty physical in their fights. She actually calls it rearranging the furniture. The fact that some of this was happening to her in her life that, you just don't know how that affected you later on in your life. My mom's a little bit passive aggressive, so I would love to know what led her to get to that point. And a lot of times we don't know until we dissect the little things in our childhood. It's because we're holding on to things that we were taught in our childhood and we're bringing as our adult selves. So in that analogy, the analogy where I mentioned about being, I'm sorry, not the analogy, but the story about her, her parents rearranging the furniture. She goes, yeah, what's kind of funny is, you've never seen your mother get hit upside the head or her head being constantly beaten on the floor by the man that supposedly loves her. And I said in that moment, you're right, I may not have ever seen that, but that doesn't mean that I was never that woman. Yeah, I had to take a quick break. I don't know if I'm supposed to be telling this story or not. Sometimes I start saying things and things happen, like the dog is barking in the background or the dog comes in here and stops things. It makes me wonder. I'm one of those signs of the universe type of things. And anyway, maybe this is something that's going to be too deep for me. I don't know. Maybe I just need to get out that space for a second. I don't know. Anyway, back to what I was saying about saying to my mom, yeah, you're right. I've never seen that before. I've never seen my mom get her head beat on the floor by someone that claims to love her. But I also can't say that I've not been that woman that's been hurt by someone who claims to love her physically. The thing with mine is, though, it was never an ongoing thing. And I think because it wasn't ongoing, because I left as soon as it happened the first time, that I convinced myself that I had not been abused, I think. Because it had only happened maybe 1 or 2 times I think a lot of times what we do is we try to convince ourselves, again, just like I was trying to convince myself that I didn't care about the fact that people were talking about me. I've tried to convince myself that I was never physically abused, because honestly, what happens is we always like, well, I've seen worse. Again, mine wasn't consistent because I stood up for myself the first time it happened, I think. Apparently, we repress memories. So, as far as I know, I don't remember anything occurring outside of these 2 nights where my ex-husband, at the time, we weren't married though. So, that was the crazy part about it. The fact that I went back to this man after this occurred is ridiculous, but that also goes to show you the amount of brainwashing and feebleness on my part that helped this to occur. And I am not blaming myself because I was young. I was young then and I didn't have an outlet. I had moved to California and I didn't really have anybody I was talking to. The first thing that these men do is isolate you from friends. So I was not really allowed to have friends outside of the ones that he knew about. And he had to be kind of a part of my friend circle. And this happened little by little. It wasn't like one of those things where they just go, you can't have any friends unless I'm part of the circle. It happens more like, I don't like that friend. Or like, why is that friend around? Or I don't trust that person. Or why are you going out with them when we should all be hanging out? It's those little type of things. So I think a lot of times, like even my mom gets confused. Well, how could he keep you from your family? It's not like he just came out and said you can't be with your family. It's like the manipulative way that it's being done. It's not done blatantly. And then as a people pleaser, because I was brought up as a people pleaser, you want to make the person that you're with happy, even to the extent of your own happiness. And so that's what I did. I wound up separating myself from my family. Because, you don't tell your business to family, so they knew nothing about what was going on. My friends didn't know what was going on, I think, because, again, I lied. I don't want to say I lied to myself. I wasn't aware. A lot of times, I don't think we're even aware we're in these type of situations. I wasn't even aware I was in an abusive relationship until I was watching Oprah one day. And they had a lady on. I don't know if she had like acid thrown on her face by an ex-lover or something, or she had just been beaten to the point where she just was a dismembered. I don't remember exactly. I just remember she didn't look like herself. I remember Oprah asking, oh, well, why do you stay? And I also remember in that moment not having to hear her answer to know why she stayed. I don't even remember what the answer was. I just remember knowing in my heart. like it was just a feeling of empathy. Like, I know why. It wasn't anything I could express with words. It was just like that deep pit where you know why they stay. You know why they stay because you're in the same situation, basically. Oprah calls it the aha moment. I think that was my aha moment. At that time was in knowing why I stayed in that. And I guess that can go back to where talking to my mom today. Because as we were talking, we kind of got cut off because I had told her, oh, I know about what it feels like. And then my father had just walked into the room at that same time because he had lost his backpack. And so my mom, he had to, inform her what was going on with this backpack. So even though I was ready to open up and share, at that moment I had got kind of shut down. And I remember her saying, I guess what scares me is I never knew that. You never told me that. And I don't remember if I have or not. To be honest, I don't. I really don't. There are some things I remember telling her, and there are some things I don't remember telling her. I know there's a lot of things I have never told anyone because I haven't even revisited this stuff myself, you know? But I also did tell her that there was a lot of things that I don't even tell myself. There's a lot of things I don't even go back and remind myself about, right? You know, we do this a lot of times. Nobody wants to go back to the bad place. I didn't never want to go back to the bad place. My girlfriend calls it the sunken place. No one wants to go back there. So, you know, you try to clear that stuff out. You don't want to go back there. But what I'm learning is you do have to revisit that stuff. You do have to be willing to talk about it. You do need to be willing to cry for that girl. I think that woman, she wasn't a girl. No, she was a girl. I think that girl was 23 at the time. 22 maybe. I think I was 22. Or I don't know. Whatever, let's say early 20s. I'm going to cry. I'm going to cry for my early 20s self. I'm going to cry for her because I'm going to hug her because there was no one there for her during that time because I didn't tell anyone about what was going on during that time. So there was no one there to comfort her or to let her know. My girlfriend says she didn't even know. So I guess I wasn't even telling her. It was just me trying to go through this alone, trying to process all this alone. And I'm not alone now. I'm not alone now. And I think one of the reasons why I'm such an advocate for going to therapy is because just like I'm here expressing what happened to me in my early 20s, I think everyone deserves that. I think that moment, and I know I just said no one wants to go back there, but I feel weight is lifted off your shoulder when you let it out, when you understand the reason for your behaviors, for the reasons for your actions. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about this anymore, but I think, let's just say, even in my dating, right, where I'm coming up with all these triggers, a lot of these triggers I feel like are coming from this place of when I was with someone who was physically and mentally abusive. So I'm coming with these triggers. I'm coming with stuff, which I promised my husband I would never come with any baggage for him. So because of that, I'm having to bring this up now. I'm having to work through this now. And of course, we all come with things, right? I'm not saying I'm not coming with anything. What I'm saying is the things that I can change, I feel like it is up to me to make sure I do whatever it is I need to do to change that for him. I don't want to be one of those people who don't trust my husband. Even when I was married to my husband, I trusted him and I had no reason to trust him because that was the way I was raised. And I think another reason why I'm not in another relationship, and I've been in a relationship since then, and I trusted him as well. So I won't say that I have any trust issues. I won't say that. What I will say is that I know that there are some things being triggered in my life, and I need to make sure that those are taken care of and held accountable for. But I digress. The reason why I got on this topic to begin with is because I was talking to my mom, and I wasn't able to finish that conversation. And so I said, you know what? Maybe this is a conversation for hello, me, it's me. Maybe this is a conversation for myself. Maybe this was not ever a conversation for me to share with my mom about that one time when he came home and he thought I was cheating on him. This was during the days when MySpace, but yeah, I'm telling my age here. And someone had written me a message on MySpace. And they wanted to meet me because they were from my high school. They were from my high school and they were a basketball player now. And they wanted to meet me at the time because they were going to be in the area. And I think I remember him reading that. Somehow or another, he was on my computer when I got home. It became this big thing. And why are you talking to this person? And X, Y, and Z. And I knew my head was like close to a wall. And I was like, I don't know. He reached out to me. He's like, well, why are you talking to him? And blah, 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 blah. And then the next thing you know, there was this mirror that was right behind me on the wall. And he pulls his fist back, as though he's gonna punch me in my face. I kind of move to the side, and his fist goes straight through the mirror, straight through the wall. The mirror shatters, and there's this hole that's just left in the wall. And I remember looking at it later, because we had to fix that hole before we moved out. I remember looking at it later like, wow, that could have been my face. And that night, I remember saying to myself, I have to get out of here. I need to get away from this man. I remember one thing my mom always said to me was, I will never let a man touch me. She always said that about my dad. He could say whatever he wants to me. He could be like the meanest person in the world. But if he lays one hand on me, if he lays one finger on me, I'm leaving. He better not ever in his life think to lift a finger on me. And she said that because of my, what she saw growing up, right? I remember that being, I guess, one of my clear-cut things too. Like, you can say whatever you want to me. You can call me all kinds of names. You could be as verbally abusive as you want, but you will never touch me. And I'm one of those smooth things over type people. So like that night I was like trying to smooth things over. I was trying to get him to calm down. I was, I remember being all hugged up on him, like trying to get him to calm down and like hug me or touch me or like hold me. Like I need him to calm down. And I remember being laid up with him and he has his hand and he puts his hand around my neck. And then at first it's like really light, but then it gets tighter and tighter and tighter to the point where I can't breathe. And he says to me, if you ever think about leaving me, I will kill you. And that's when I knew I needed to get the fuck out of there. That's when I knew I was like, okay, this is getting fucked up. This is getting dangerous. This is getting serious. This dude ain't playing no games. He's out of his fucking mind. This dude threatening to kill me if I leave him. I gotta get the fuck up out of here. And that's what I did. Like the very next day, I started looking for another apartment because we were staying in an apartment. He was staying with me and I was staying with someone else. I had like taken over someone else's lease. So it was me and my good guy friend. We lived together. And then this guy, my ex-husband, moved in with us. This is a whole nother story, guys. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave him here with my roommate. And I told him at the time, I was like, listen, I got to go. He was like, you do whatever you need to do. Fine. So I was like, I'm leaving him with him and I'm going to be good. I found my own place. I don't remember if it was like a couple of days or something later. I feel like it was almost immediate. Like, at least that's what my brain tells me. I got my shit out and I moved. I got the fuck up out of there. Now, here's a tricky part. I was in human resources at the time where I worked, and I had gotten him a job where I worked. So, even though I had moved out, he was still in my work environment. I remember telling him, you know what, I'm done with this. This can't be, you can't touch me. You can't threaten me. This is something we're not going to do. I'm not doing it. You're on your own, buddy. And so that was me breaking up with him. The problem with that was because we still worked together, there was still a tie in. I was still able to see him. And we worked at a big place where there was like a lot of people and a lot of different women. And I remember he sent me flowers to work. And people were like, ooh, who are those from? And I knew who they were from. And, it was a lot of I'm sorry's and please just come talk to me. And I was like, no. But, I hate to say love. But when you're young and you think you're in love, you think those are the growing pains of love. And he promised he'd never touch me again. And somehow or another wound up, even though I didn't get back with him during that time. I'll say like a few months went by. Man, that heartbreak was killing me. And I never allowed myself to just be like, I'm done with this. And I think that was my problem. The heartache hurt me so much because I thought this man loved me so much. This man had moved from a different state to come live with me in my state. And I'm like, this man loves me. Like just stupid during that time. And also because, why there was an attachment to this man. I think it was because I was in a new state. I hadn't found anybody new. And so it was just the comfort of being with someone that I knew. That's really all it was. Because if I think about some of the men that I dated while I was out here, I would probably be living a pretty good life if I had not been with this man. Ugh, I hate to even think about that. But I allowed this man to control my life. I allowed this man to come into my life. I allowed this man to stay. I kicked this man out and allowed him to come back in. I had to take responsibility for that because that's what I did. I did it. I hate that I did it now. But, that's life. That's life. So yeah, he wound up coming back on some whack ass shit. It was still in a very abusive way of doing things. The abuse never stopped. The physical abuse, yeah, he never touched me again. Never did he ever touch me after that mirror night and the whole hand around my neck. Never did he ever touch me again. I think he learned his lesson from that. He was like, oh, she ain't playing. She'll leave me. All right, cool, bet. Just have to work on her mentally. And that, ladies and gentlemen, we will get to on another episode. Because honestly, I think I've said enough for one time. What I will say, me, talking to me, is I want you to know that you are not responsible for his behavior. You can take accountability for your own, but also know that you were a 20-year-old child that didn't really know any better. You had never been in a situation before where a man had physically put his hands on you. And I would like to commend you for the fact that you were able to walk away from that. What you didn't understand is that your heart could break and that you could still get over that heartache if you'd only just stuck it through and realized what was best for you. You knew that what was best for you. You knew it because you'd said it. You knew it that what was best for you was to not go back to that situation. But you were too weak in that moment to choose yourself over someone else. Ooh. And if we're going back full circle here, this is very similar to an incident that just happened recently where you actually did allow your heart to break. You didn't run after someone. You understood that some things do have to just be let go of. And even though your heart's gonna break, guess what, baby girl? You still survived. You still survived, and you still know that he's not the only man in the world. You figured that part out, and I'm proud of you. And even as the young girl who took this little dumbass, young ass, hoish ass, I want to call him something else. We're going to call him dude back. You were young. You were young and you thought you were in love. And you took that shit with you for way too many years. I wish you had let that shit go sooner, but you never forgave yourself for that. And you deserve to forgive yourself for that. You deserve to forgive yourself for what the 20-year-old you did, because the 20-year-old you didn't know any better. The 20-year-old you didn't know any better. She was just living this life, trying to figure out this world, just as any 20-year-old would do. It was your first year in that. And yeah, you was with a crazy. And yeah, it was hard to shake them. But you know what? At the end of the day, you learned your lesson and you're here now. You're here now. So I want to thank you for being strong enough to carry me through one of the darkest parts of my life. I know you never thought you would see anything like that. I know you didn't think you would be trying to carry a man on your back through everything. And girl, you carried that man through so much shit, man. But it's okay. It's okay. You're okay. You're okay now. You're okay now. And if I would say anything else to you, just that I love you for being as strong as you could be during that time. I love you for just showing up. Cause you could have. You could have not done that. And I wouldn't be here had you just decided to give up. I want you to know that I admire you. Even though you made some stupid mistakes, listen. Listen. You did what you could do with the cards that you were dealt. You tried to do things on your own. You tried to pave your own way. You tried to do things without any guidance. You didn't have anybody there holding your hand. You didn't have anybody there to tell you what was the next move. You had people in your ear telling you what you probably should have did, but you decided not to listen to them. But that's a whole nother story. And you know better now. I'll tell you one thing that I know I've learned from you is to start listening to other people. When a lot of the people start saying the exact same thing, that's when it's time to start listening to them. When people say, I think you should probably let that go, that's when I think you should start listening to them. Before, I feel like you felt like you had something to prove. And you did not have anything to prove, baby. You had nothing to prove with that man at all. You have nothing to prove with any man. You have nothing to prove to anybody. The only thing that you ever had anything to prove to was you. And even though you kind of fucked that up, we learned from it. We've learned from it. I can tell you, me now has learned from it, okay? It wasn't for naught. It wasn't for naught. I forgive you, and we can move on. I forgive you. I forgive you. And we can move on. Oh, man. Lord have mercy. All right, guys. I'm probably going to pick this back up. Maybe in a forward or something. I want to thank the ones who constantly show up every week and go through this. Because, again, this is for me. But I also realize that in dealing with my own traumas, I know I'm helping someone else by actually going through it. A lot of us don't want to get to this place. A lot of us don't want to go to the dark place. We don't want to go to the sunken place. But if I can implore you not to do it by yourself, okay? The only reason why I'm here doing this by myself is because I know that you're here with me. So in my mind, I'm not really doing it by myself. And I also do have a therapist. So, like, I can have these emotions, I can have these feelings. And for me, I'll go back and I write things down and I'll be like, okay, what did I learn from this? What did I learn about myself here? What am I getting from going through this? Talking to my old self, healing her, asking her for her forgiveness, giving her kindness, grace, everything that I did not have when I was that age. To me, I feel as though I am going back and healing that part of myself because too many times we tuck things in away and we don't allow that part of us to heal. That is why I do this. To heal, to help others. And also, again, I say I do this for the sake of my husband, and I do because I do ultimately want to be in a relationship with someone and be able to be emotionally available for them. And the only way I feel like I'm going to be emotionally available for them is if I am able to really touch on this chord that was hit, this love that has been opened up to me inside of me. Now that it's out, I am trying to see what to do with it. And for me, I'm a lover, so I pour into others and I love hard. And so I'm pouring out my inner emotions. And I hope that this is a safe space where I'm giving it to you. And maybe in hopes of, if you've never been through something like I have, at least if you know of someone who has been through something similar, maybe it can help you in understanding like how that person thinks, why that person may be a little bit more closed off. You know, maybe they just haven't forgiven themselves yet. It's like so much, there's so much inner work a lot of us have yet to complete that I implore you guys to try to complete as best you can. So hopefully with a therapist. I digress. I need to get out of here. I got work to do. Yep, over 30 minutes. I have work to do, guys. I may or may not even release this. Sometimes I feel like some things may just be led for me to say for myself. But anyway, here I am rambling again. Let me get out of here. I'm going to get out of here, guys. This time I'm really going to get out. I'm really going to get off of here. I can see you. You're like, all right, Nikki, you said that last time. You said you're going to get off. This reminds me of my PS4 days. I just like, keep going. They're like, no, Nikki, don't leave. I'm like, yeah, but I got to go. And I stay on for another hour. I'm not going to do that to you guys. I'm leaving, okay? I'm actually going to get off of here. I think I'm just trying to make sure I was in a good state, like a good, healthy state, which I am. I think it's good to kind of go back, allow yourself to feel those emotions. Don't be scared to feel those emotions, guys. Don't be afraid to cry sometimes. That was me, like, holding everything in, like, before these podcasts. Like I tell you, a lot of these things that I'm sharing or will be about to share, I'm going to be touching on some things that I have not touched on in a while. So I don't want every one of these things to be crying, but at the same time, it is therapeutic for me. And for me, I do need to kind of get these things out. So again, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being along for the ride. And just remember that I too love you. Okay? So with that said, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hello Me, It's Me with Nikki D. Lovely. Just remember, you can't change who you were yesterday, but you can always learn and grow to become a better version of yourself today. So make sure you do the mental work today for the future you tomorrow, and I will see you next week. And in the meantime, make sure that you check me out on my Instagram at Nikki D. Lovely or _broke_mama. You can also find me at nikkidlovely.com and check out my book, No F Boys Allowed. I also have a poetry book coming out pretty soon, so just a little shameless plug. But either way, I will see you guys next time, and thanks again. Bye. It's another one.